Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tarnished Tales. The news cycle is a runaway train, and we're here to keep you on board with the hottest updates you cannot miss. We've got stories that are shaking things up, pushing boundaries, and making us rethink everything. Get ready for a rapid-fire rundown of what's happening right now, because you won't hear this anywhere else first. So buckle up, hit that notification bell, and let's dive into the stories that are dominating the conversation. First up, get this. Dedicated fans are stepping in to resurrect a beloved game that Ubisoft officially shut down. We're talking about a full revival, complete with a release date and a promise to bring it back to life for players worldwide. Next, we're diving deep into the sprawling worlds of gaming, specifically looking at franchises that have become almost too big for their own good. We're exploring titles that have packed so much content, players are struggling to see them through. Is this an evolution or an overload? We've got the breakdown on what's driving players away from those endless quests and massive maps. Then, we're revisiting a franchise that tried to go back to its roots, promising a return to classic gameplay. But did it hit the mark? We're dissecting the latest developments and asking the big question. Has this iconic series finally outgrown its old-school formula, or is there still magic to be found in its familiar mechanics? Get ready for a critical look at what's next. And finally, we're tackling the technical side of gaming, with a deep dive into why some highly anticipated titles aren't making it to certain consoles in their full glory. We're talking about game key cards and the surprising reasons behind them, straight from a developer's mouth. What does this mean for the future of physical releases? Stick around for all the answers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. A community's comeback. Modders resurrect Ubisoft's The Crew with imminent release, in a move that's sending shockwaves through the gaming community. Dedicated fans and modders have stepped up to breathe new life into Ubisoft's recently defunct open-world racer, The Crew. This ambitious project, known as The Crew Unlimited TCU, is not only poised to resurrect the game, but has also set an imminent release date, promising players a second chance at experiencing the beloved title. The original game, launched in 2014, was an online-only racing experience set across a vast, persistent open world of the United States mainland. However, its playable life was abruptly cut short in December 2023 when Ubisoft announced the shutdown of its servers. Compounding the disappointment, Ubisoft went a step further by revoking the licenses of players who owned the game through its digital storefront, effectively rendering the software an unplayable digital paperweight for many. This drastic measure sparked widespread frustration, fueling initiatives like the petition created by Ross Scott of Stop Killing Games, highlighting a growing concern over the ephemeral nature of games as a service. The situation was further underscored by the simultaneous shutdown of EA's Anthem, a similar online-only title, intensifying calls for game preservation and player-owned experiences. Enter The Crew Unlimited. Spearheaded by project lead Whammy4, this fan-driven initiative aims to circumvent the server shutdown by employing a server emulator. The project promises both an offline mode, which will run on a local server installed on the player's computer, and an online mode. This approach directly contrasts with the games as a service model, where players often purchase a product but don't truly own it. TCU emphasizes player ownership, stating on their website, "Your local server, your local save games, your game. No one will ever be able to take this away from you now." This philosophy directly challenges the industry's trend towards titles that rely on constant online connectivity and publisher control. To utilize TCU, players will need an existing copy of The Crew on PC. The team cannot distribute the game files themselves due to legal complexities surrounding abandonware, but the server software they have developed is reportedly capable of running with both legitimate and pirated copies of the game. The launch of The Crew Unlimited is slated for September 15, 2025, and the team's decision to offer it for free is a strategic move to minimize the chances of the publisher directing their lawyers to intervene. This grassroots effort represents a significant victory for game preservation and player agency, offering a beacon of hope for other titles facing similar fates. The community's dedication is a powerful testament to the enduring appeal of The Crew and a clear signal to publishers about the value players place on long-term access and ownership. The success of TCU could pave the way for similar fan-led preservation projects, ensuring that beloved games remain accessible for generations to come. The gaming world watches with anticipation, hoping this initiative not only succeeds, but also inspires a more player-centric approach from developers and publishers alike. It's a bold statement about what happens when a community refuses to let a game die. The anticipation is palpable, and the gaming community is rallying behind this extraordinary effort to keep the crew alive and playable. The sentiment across online forums and social media is overwhelmingly positive, with many praising the modders' dedication and technical prowess. Analysts are closely watching this development, seeing it as a potential watershed moment for player-driven game preservation and a direct challenge to the current games-as-a-service model that often leaves players feeling disenfranchised. This is more than just a game revival. It's a reclamation of digital ownership. But hold on, because the fight for game ownership and player experience is far from over. Next, we're shifting gears to explore why some of the most ambitious game worlds are becoming so massive that players can't even finish them. The bloat factor. When games become too big to finish, in the ever-evolving landscape of video game development, a trend has emerged that's leaving many players overwhelmed and unsatisfied: the relentless expansion of open-world titles. This phenomenon is particularly evident in franchises that have seen their scope balloon to such an extent that finishing them feels less like an accomplishment and more like an endurance test. The Assassin's Creed franchise, known for its historical settings and stealth gameplay, exemplifies this trend. While the shift to open-world mechanics brought new life to the series, it also led to an exponential increase in game length. This culminated in titles like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which became infamous for its sheer scale. Reports suggest that Valhalla, when including its extensive DLC, could demand anywhere from 60 to over 100 hours of gameplay to experience fully. This massive undertaking often involved repeating similar quest types and navigating a world brimming with repetitive content, a phenomenon critics have labeled Ubisoft open-world nonsense. The core gameplay mechanics might remain solid, and the visual presentation can be stunning, but the sheer volume of mandatory activities and side content can bury the narrative and lead to player fatigue. Many players found themselves losing interest long before reaching the credits, unable to push through the grueling 60-hour-plus slog that the main story often became. Recognizing this feedback, Ubisoft appears to have recalibrated its approach. The subsequent entry, Assassin's Creed Mirage, was designed as a deliberate return to a more focused, 15-hour experience. More recently, Assassin's Creed Shadows has aimed for a campaign of around 30-40 hours, indicating a conscious effort to trim the bloat. However, the question remains: has the appetite for these sprawling, time-intensive epics diminished? The overwhelming feedback suggests that while players appreciate expansive worlds, they also crave tighter narratives and more focused gameplay loops. The struggle to finish these games isn't just about a lack of time. It's about maintaining engagement amidst repetitive tasks and an ever-expanding to-do list. Many fans express a desire for games that respect their time, offering compelling experiences without demanding hundreds of hours. The discussion around these lengthy titles often centers on game design philosophy. Are developers prioritizing content quantity over quality? Is the open-world genre itself inherently prone to bloat? The audience impact is clear. A significant portion of the player base feels alienated by games that feel more like obligations than enjoyable pastimes. Analyst opinions often echo this sentiment, suggesting that a more curated and impactful experience, even within a shorter playtime, can lead to greater player satisfaction and retention. The trending community discussions frequently lament the loss of focused storytelling and the repetitive nature of many open-world activities. The sentiment is that while variety is welcome, endless checklists can detract from the overall enjoyment and the desire to see a story through to its conclusion. This ongoing debate highlights a crucial challenge for game developers: balancing the allure of vast, explorable worlds with the need to deliver a cohesive, engaging, and ultimately completable narrative experience that respects the player's time and investment. The era of the 100-hour mandatory journey seems to be waning, with players increasingly valuing quality and narrative impact over sheer scale. But even when developers try to scale back, the legacy of past design choices lingers. What happens when a return to form feels more like a reminder of what we've outgrown? We'll explore that next. Nostalgia's enduring echo. Has the Assassin's Creed formula become obsolete? Assassin's Creed Mirage was heralded as a return to the series' roots, a deliberate step back from the sprawling RPG elements that had defined recent entries. Promising a more focused experience with black box missions and a narrative-driven approach reminiscent of Assassin's Creed 2, it aimed to recapture the magic that cemented the franchise's early success. Yet, despite the immense publicity and the clear fan demand for a less bloated, more traditional Assassin's Creed experience, the game's impact seems to have faded quickly. The recent announcement of a new DLC for Mirage, nearly 2 years after its launch and mere months after the release of the latest entry, Assassin's Creed Shadows, has sparked confusion and debate. This is particularly surprising given that Ubisoft initially stated no post-launch DLC was planned for Mirage. This decision raises questions about the series' direction and whether the back-to-basics approach, while initially welcomed, has truly resonated in the long term. Mirage wasn't a bad game. In fact, it received positive reviews, largely for delivering exactly what fans asked for: a smaller world, a tighter story, and classic stealth gameplay. However, its reception highlights a critical point. Nostalgia alone may not be enough to sustain a franchise in the modern gaming landscape. The game served as a potent reminder that while players yearned for the old-school formula, the industry and player expectations have evolved. The extreme length of titles like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, with its 60-70-hour base game and extensive DLC, led to a widespread desire for a more concise experience. Mirage delivered this, offering a sub-25-hour adventure. However, the fact that many players, including critics, played it, uninstalled it, and moved on without looking back suggests that while the formula was requested, it might not be as compelling in practice as it is in memory. The core issue seems to be that the old-school Creed formula, while foundational, might be inherently limited in its appeal in the 2020s. It provided a fun, albeit forgettable, hit of nostalgia, but it didn't necessarily forge a new path or offer lasting engagement. The confusion surrounding the new DLC could indicate a struggle to find a compelling reason to extend the life of a game designed as a self-contained throwback. It risks pulling Mirage into the forever game territory, similar to Valhalla, which seems counterintuitive to its original design philosophy. The sentiment among many players and observers is that Mirage fulfilled its purpose as a nostalgic interlude, proving that the series could still deliver classic gameplay, but perhaps demonstrating that this formula alone isn't enough to drive the franchise forward. As Ubisoft looks towards future titles like Codename Hex and beyond, the critical question is whether the series will continue to lean on past glories or embrace innovation. The unexpected DLC for Mirage could be interpreted in a few ways. Perhaps it's an attempt to capitalize on any remaining goodwill, or maybe it's a sign that even Ubisoft is unsure of the series' long-term direction. However, it ultimately feels superfluous, as the game already made its point effectively. The most exciting prospect for the franchise lies in exploring new themes and gameplay mechanics, as hinted at by the rumored witch trials setting for Hex. The series has the potential for fresh magic, but it needs to move beyond simply rehashing its greatest hits. The overwhelming community reaction suggests a general ambivalence towards the DLC, with many feeling that the focus should be on upcoming, more innovative titles rather than extending a game that already served its nostalgic purpose. This situation underscores a broader industry challenge: adapting beloved franchises to contemporary tastes without alienating the core fanbase or falling into a cycle of repetition. But the challenges in the gaming world aren't just about design choices. They extend to the very hardware these games are built for. We're about to uncover why some titles can't make the leap to certain consoles as easily as you'd think. The cartridge conundrum: why Star Wars Outlaws isn't fully on Switch 2 physicals. A recent development regarding the physical release of Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws on the Nintendo Switch 2 has ignited a discussion about the limitations of current console hardware and the future of physical game media. Rob Banton, the audio architect for Ubisoft's Snowdrop engine, shed light on the situation, explaining directly why the game utilizes a game key card instead of a full cartridge. Banton revealed that the Snowdrop engine, which powers Star Wars Outlaws, relies heavily on disk streaming for its expansive open-world environments. The performance capabilities of the Switch 2's proprietary cards, he explained, did not meet the required standards for the game's targeted quality. He elaborated that if Star Wars Outlaws had been developed with the Switch 2 as a primary target platform from the outset, the situation might have been different. However, as the game was initially built around the faster SSDs of other target platforms, adapting it to the Switch 2's limitations presented significant challenges. Banton stated, "As it was, we'd build a game around the SSDs of the initial target platforms, and then the Switch 2 came along a while later. In this case, I think our leadership made the right call." This explanation directly addresses the technical hurdles rather than simply citing file size, which has been a common point of contention in discussions about physical game releases. While Star Wars Outlaws itself is around 20 GB, well within the capacity of a standard 64 GB Switch cartridge, the engine's reliance on high-speed data streaming for its detailed open world proved to be the bottleneck. Nintendo currently offers 64 GB cartridges as their largest option for full physical releases without requiring a download. However, many modern games, especially those with extensive open worlds and high-fidelity graphics, exceed this capacity. Publishers often face a choice: pay a premium for larger cartridges or opt for game key cards, which essentially require players to download the majority of the game's data. The decision to use a game key card for Star Wars Outlaws on the Switch 2, therefore, stems from a technical incompatibility with the engine's streaming requirements, not necessarily an inability to fit the game's data onto a cartridge. This situation highlights a growing divide in the gaming hardware landscape. While the Switch 2 aims for portability and accessibility, its performance and storage capabilities differ significantly from more powerful consoles like the PS5 and Xbox Series XS. Developers creating games optimized for these high-end systems face a considerable challenge when porting to less powerful hardware, especially when the game's core architecture, like the Snowdrop engine's streaming demands, is deeply integrated with faster storage solutions. The public reaction to this news has been mixed. Some players expressed disappointment, feeling that physical releases should offer a complete, playable experience without mandatory downloads. Others understand the technical constraints, acknowledging that compromises are often necessary for cross-platform releases. Analysts suggest that this situation underscores the evolving nature of physical media in an increasingly digital-first world. While cartridges offer a tangible product, the underlying technology and publisher decisions often mean they function more as a license key than a self-contained game. This development raises important questions for both developers and consumers about what constitutes a true, physical release and how hardware limitations will continue to shape game distribution strategies. The decision by Ubisoft's leadership is presented as a pragmatic one, prioritizing the game's intended experience on its primary platforms over a potentially compromised version on the Switch 2, and that wraps up our deep dives for today. But before you go, we'll give you a lightning-fast recap of all the stories that made headlines. And that's a wrap for today's pulse-bounding update. We saw modders bringing the crew back from the brink, explored why games are getting too big to finish, questioned if Assassin's Creed has outgrown its old formula, and uncovered the tech hurdles behind Star Wars Outlaws on Switch 2. Don't miss out on any of the action, hit that like button, subscribe to Tarnished Tales for more unmissable updates, and ring the notification bell so you're always in the loop. Plus, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and follow us on all our socials to stay connected. See you next time.